Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello, welcome to Winning. I am your host, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and today's guest is Dana Graham. How are you, Dana?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Good. I'm so excited to have you on here. If you don't know who Dana is, she is a Winnipeg realtor with a passion for business systems and maximizing productivity so that you can enjoy your life, which we're going to talk about this today. Really important. But she has worked for a marketing research company, and then she became a realtor in 2016. She's always been interested in creating community and roots, which I also love. And she has a podcast too. So I'm interviewing an interviewer, which is always fun. But it's called The Bus Bench, and it's a really similar thing to my interview style podcast with other business owners, and they discuss businesses that allow you to live life as well, which I think is really important as entrepreneurs and business people. We sometimes lose ourselves in our jobs, right? So yeah, thanks for being on. I'm really excited to have you here.
Me too. Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, no, I love it. We always chat before. I know I always talk about this, but we chat before and kind of talk. And I'm like, and because I'm also going to be on your podcast, which I'm really excited about. Because I'm like, it's so much easier to get interviewed than to host.
Always. I know. I'm just sitting back and relaxing, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. So today you get the easy job, and then in a few weeks, I'll get the easy job.
Yeah, got it.
So do you want to tell our audience, just in case I don't know you, a little bit more about yourself and kind of who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So like you were saying, I'm a realtor in Winnipeg. I've been a realtor for 7 years with Century 21 Backman and Associates. I had a team and recently disbanded the team. So we can talk about that a little bit too, if you want. But I really enjoy being a business owner, and I enjoy kind of the ins and outs of balancing kind of the flexibility of your time versus trying to implement some structure into being a business owner, because that's I think is something that I struggle with. And that's kind of me.
Yeah, I think everyone, you said I struggle with, I think every entrepreneur and small business owner that I've ever talked to struggles with that. It's really hard to turn off. It's really hard to separate, especially for a lot of us that work from home. Yeah. It's really hard to separate work time from not work time because it kind of all blends into one, right?
Absolutely. I was actually just talking to somebody else today, and realtors work a lot from home. I think there's a little bit of a misconception that we're always out doing showings, but a lot of it is computer work. And it's like necessary to have either an office elsewhere or like some kind of separation between like, okay, I'm working now. This is my office, whatever. And then physically leave that spot.
Oh, I agree.
And then now it's like family time, or now it's like me time. Because otherwise, it just all melds together.
Oh, it's so true. I think having an office, or for a lot of people I know, they work from their dining room table. They don't have a dedicated office, right? But I think a lot of it is maybe setting yourself some like business hours, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Even like not even set. I would love to have set business hours every day, but even just today when I wake up, okay, this is the amount of work I'm going to do. This at 8:00 tonight, I'm done. And then actually being done. Like I tried to have one of those bedtime things on your phone where it like turns off notifications.
Yes. Goodbye. Just,
like, because if I know it's there, then I'm answering, and then good luck.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. And I know I had a physical brick and mortar business, but social media was a big part of my business. And I know that when I first started out at, 10:30 p.m., I'm in bed and someone's messaging me, asking me about an item. And I'm like, well, I want to answer because they might come in tomorrow or they might buy it on my online store. And if I don't answer it now, then they might lose interest and everything else. But without those boundaries of it's 10:30 p.m., I'm in bed, I should not be answering this question.
Yes.
Without that, you just do it. You just answer it.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's something that I'm learning, but I've started to realize people don't expect you to answer at 10:30 p.m. I always thought oh, they're messaging me, so they want a response. But then on the flip side, when I send an email at 10:30, it's just so I can get it off my plate. It's not because I want somebody to reply to me at 10:30. It's so that I don't forget to do it at another time. But it's hard to realize those things in somebody else.
I agree. And even myself now as a customer, I'll say, if I'm going to send an email, I'll actually schedule it to send. Mm-hmm. So even if it's 10 p.m. and I'm like thinking about it and I'm like, I'm the same as you, or even a business one, I'm like, okay, I'm just doing this now so I don't forget. But I'll schedule it to send like tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Or something so that I'm doing it at 10 p.m. But that other person doesn't actually get it till tomorrow morning.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And the satisfaction of waking up in the morning knowing that like 10 emails are being sent out, but you're still like relaxing is the best. That's the best feeling.
Yeah, it's so true. Okay, I want to backtrack because I feel like we're already like into our like conversation here, but like let's just backtrack a little bit. So you were in a marketing role,
yes,
and then you became a realtor. So how is that transition? And like did you were like I like this marketing job. I don't like this marketing job. I want to be a realtor. How did this go?
Yeah. So actually what I was doing was market research. So it's kind of the back end of marketing. We had clients who were looking at what stores they should supply with their product, or we did a lot of political polling where political parties would be trying to gauge how they should phrase a message during campaigns, or how they should, what kind of commercials and ads they should put out and how they should phrase it. So it was kind of the back end of marketing. I didn't do a lot of front facing stuff, but honestly, I loved that job. It was fantastic. Very interesting stuff. We worked with a lot of really interesting clients. And I think just for me, it came down to where I could go with it and obviously how much money I could make. And that's always a consideration when you're talking a career.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Everyone wants to know, how much am I going to get paid?
Yeah.
And can I make more than this somehow?
Yeah.
Right.
Where can I go from there? And Winnipeg is just a much smaller market than Toronto and Vancouver, and there wasn't a lot of space to move within the company where I was, but also other companies in Winnipeg. It just the growth wasn't there. So I kind of considered my options, and my husband is self-employed, and so I kind of thought, it would be nice if we could match our schedules, because he doesn't work full time necessarily. He has weekdays off, certain days of the week, or he'll work mornings, but then he's off in the afternoon. And I never had that flexibility. So I was looking into essentially different career options that were employed. Because I think lots of people who are self-employed or, you know, have businesses, they have a talent, or like they're making something, or they have like, you know, and I'm not like making signs, or I'm not like handy, or, you know, I don't have a talent.
It's true though, right? Because lots of people took something they enjoyed doing,
Yes,
making scrunchies, for example, which was huge in the last few years.
exactly.
And that's their business.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. And I didn't have that. So I kind of one day was like, I think real estate agents have a similar, I mean, we are self-employed, but there's structures in place. Like we don't have to do some of the aspects like billing that other people have to do. And I just kind of sat on it for a month because I didn't want to be that person who was like, I'm going to be a realtor and then just like do it.
Just hopped right in without actually knowing what you're going to be doing.
Without thinking about it. Yeah. And I met a couple of other realtors who are in the business to see what things were like. And then I started taking the courses while I was employed. At the time, it was very interesting in real estate. You could not have another job. You could own another business, but you couldn't have another job and be a realtor. And so I straight up quit my job.
Scary.
It was crazy. Yeah. Thinking back, like, whoa, that was a big decision, but I think it was good because it really, then all of your attention is on this thing and you're not doing it part-time. So that's kind of
Yeah, it's true. Because if you're in something, you should be in it.
Exactly. Right? And I understand also that I was privileged to do that. Not everybody can quit. I mean, I had a spouse, and so I did have some support. I like to be self-sufficient. So that was a driving factor for me, but not everyone can just quit their job and not know where their next paycheck's coming from, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I started my first business, I was single and I didn't have that spouse. And that was the most terrifying thing about quitting my paying job, because I knew my mortgage was covered and I knew my car was covered and all those things. And when I stepped into owning a business, I had no clue. Like I can maybe not pay my mortgage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I on one hand, I think you have to be a little bit unaware because otherwise we wouldn't do it. Like if you fully knew, you'd be like, holy crap. But on the other hand, it's so scary.
A huge thank you to our sponsor, Just For You Day Spa and Wellness. Just For You is Canada's premier day spa with 5 locations in Alberta and Saskatchewan. The award-winning luxury spa features Leah Reese cosmetics and iconic Betty jewelry that you can also purchase online. Visit www.justforyoudayspa.com to book your service or to purchase a gift card. Yeah, it's true. I just did a contributing chapter into a book. So it's really cool. Now I'm a published author, which like never in my wildest thoughts would that ever happen. But I actually have a part in there where when I started, I'm like, I don't know if I was dumb or like didn't actually think failure would be an option. Like, I'm not sure which one it was.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm doing it. And I just jumped in.
Yeah.
And reflecting back, I'm like, what was I thinking? And it turned out good for me. It all went well. But I'm like, whoa, like, did I not even think about what if I can't pay my mortgage? Or if I was just like, I'm going to make sure I can pay my mortgage. I don't remember. And I wish I would have kept a journal or something to look back at this stuff. But I think I just thought, well, if I'm doing this, I'm doing it and I'm going to make it work.
Yeah.
And jumped in.
And you need that very optimistic, high hopes mindset because otherwise, I mean, yeah, I struggle sometimes with this because I think there is some aspect of you need to be realistic and like positive thoughts don't get you the full way, but they definitely do help you make those initial decisions that help you leap into things that are literally terrifying and the consequences are high.
Or high. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like not being able to pay your mortgage. I mean, that's a huge consequence, right?
That's the biggest. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you said you just dismembered your team.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming after you started, you built a team.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go back to that point.
Yeah.
So you quit your job.
Yeah.
You start in real estate. So how did your journey go? Because I know if you dismembered a team, you built a team.
Yes, I did. So I started in real estate in 2016, and I was a solo agent for a while. And then in 2021, a friend of mine actually was thinking about getting her to become a mortgage advisor or mortgage broker.
Okay. Yep.
And I was like, no, you need to get your real estate license. Get your real estate license. And so she did. And then we discussed becoming a team together. And so she was getting licensed. I was, getting things together so that we could be a team. And so she fully got her license in July 2021. The market was crazy. So I needed help, and it was just, it went, and we worked really well together. And I did want a team because eventually I think in business, you have to kind of think of your succession plan. And being in real estate, it's very forward facing. And it's very hard to draw boundaries because you're working on other people's timelines, and they're important timelines because they're looking for a house, offers are being accepted, Thursday at 8:00. Well, if you say I don't work past 8:00, it really affects that person negatively.
Exactly.
So I wanted to have a team so that my availability or just availability is higher for clients. So if I want to take time off or if I want to draw some of those boundaries, my clients aren't as affected. And I really enjoy, sorry, there's going to be a fire truck going by, so I apologize.
That's okay. Hey, there's emergencies happen. I've had printing happen and whatnot in the background too, so it's all good.
So I also want to I love the marketing aspect of owning a business. I love this kind of stuff. But I find doing the actual transactions, there's a lot of things that come up from out of nowhere. And there's a lot of things that are high stress. And I can foresee myself not wanting to do this forever. So that was kind of the thought behind the team. And then we onboarded a third person to the team earlier this year, I think. I think earlier this year. So I had a 3-person team.
So when you're talking about this, though, it just sets me to the thought of working on your business and not working in your business as much, which I think, we're going to talk about systems in our business in a little bit, but I think that's such an important thing because especially when people are first starting out, they're really working in their business. Yeah. Right? They're doing everything. Yes. They're doing all of the things. Then they maybe realize I need more of a team. So you bring someone on, and then maybe you don't like doing something or you're not really good at it. Then you get that new member of your team. Well, you're good at this. Great. You can take over this job. Then I like the marketing. I can work on the marketing.
Exactly.
And that will bring us in new clients and make us more money. So everybody wins, right?
Exactly.
But it's the on your business and the in your business. And I don't think we really talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
We just think, well, I'm the business owner, so I have to take everything on myself.
Exactly. And it's so difficult to do that, especially as you get busier in it.
Yes.
Like you need to be able to get above it and think, okay, what's the 5-year plan? What's the 10-year plan? But when you're so busy with real estate transactions, for me, or with sales or whatever, then you can't think ahead to those things, which is great. I mean, sales are the things that make money. So it's hard to not focus on that.
But I think too, you made another good point, because when you're first starting a business, you need an exit strategy, which is like insane to think that, well, I'm just starting. I can't think about how I'm getting out of it because I'm just starting it.
Yeah.
But what is your succession plan? Do you plan to sell it? Do you plan to have someone take over it? Do you plan to just close? Like, what's your end game?
Yeah.
Because decisions you make at the beginning or while you're building your team will change based on what you want to do.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. And I think I wanted to build something that is not just me doing the things. I wanted to build something that was real. And to me, real means, it may employ other people, or it may be, it's a system and structure that supports other people as well. That could potentially one day, like, it's tough to sell, but I think if you build it in the right way, it could be sold. And that's the ultimate goal, is you're making money while you're working, for sure. But then also to be able to make money when you're not working is.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And the thing too is your life changes, and where you start out today is not where you might be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road. I never in a million years thought I would ever sell my business, because that was my baby and I built it and I loved it and I still have fond memories. But I sold my business because I got married and I moved. That was not anything that I foresaw. I thought, oh, maybe I'll get married, but I didn't think I'd get married to someone that lived in a different city, right? So I'll get married someday, but I'll just live here and I'll just sell my business.
Yeah.
And that was a circumstance that I never thought about 8 years before when I was starting my business, right? I thought, I'll just have this forever, and then I want to retire one day. I'll just sell it or close, and or I'll have a kid and they'll take it over. Yeah. That was kind of my thought. But life threw me a curveball. Yeah. And none of that was going to work. Yeah. So I had to think a different way. So I did sell my business and moved on to something else. And that was really hard, but also it's what I had to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like at the time, it's what I had to do. And I know when you say you dismembered your team, let's talk about that now, because clearly that's what you had to do.
Yes. Yeah. And like you said, you don't really know where life is going to take you. And for me, this year in real estate is a little bit of a tougher year because, we're post-pandemic, interest rates are going up. It's a very different market. Yeah. And I also had this conversation earlier too, but I think each of us in a business is just striving to have the role in your business that you want. So some people, it's just like a one single person show, and that they love doing that, and that's where they stay. Or do you want to be a manager, more of a manager role, overseeing things? Well, then you have to hire people and get to that role. We all expand to the point where we're happy with whatever role we're doing. And I was working on team dynamics and team structures, and I loved it. But I felt that I was paying more attention to the team culture and dynamic than I was to clients. So usually I would touch base with clients and, go for coffee with them and go for lunch. Instead, I was touching base with the team and going for lunch with the team and making sure everyone was happy. And so my focus shifted. And I was spending a lot of time on the managing aspect and not so much on the client aspect. And it was like, it's just two different jobs. And I would have really enjoyed that job if it was as lucrative as the actual transacting part.
Right.
But it wasn't. And so I had to just make a decision between, well, do I continue doing this job that's not making me as much money? Or do I go back, kind of start fresh with a new perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I ultimately decided to do.
Well, and it's pivoting because you kind of lived both. You did it with just you, and then you did it with a team.
Yeah.
And there's pros and cons for each, right?
Yeah.
And there's things you like about each, and there's things you don't like about each, and that's life and that's business. But when you sit down at the end of the day and look at something and decide you have to make a change, that's a really awesome decision, but it's a really hard decision.
Yes.
It's hard.
Yeah. I can't imagine selling. I mean, I think about that sometimes too, because real estate's so area specific. Even if you had your license in another province, you're starting from scratch. And
yeah,
that must have been huge for you to make that decision to sell and start from scratch. But also, I guess, on the flip side, you have the capability to build a business, and that doesn't change.
Yeah.
So you brought that with you.
Yeah. And I made changes slowly. Like I went from brick and mortar to just online.
Okay.
I had 2 spaces and I had people that were looking for spaces. So honestly, I literally signed a paper that signed me out of my lease, and they signed the paper which signed them into the lease.
Nice.
And so, I mean, I say that really easy. No, it was months of finding people and negotiating and making sure that the building owner wanted them. There was a lot to it. But at the end of the day, I signed a piece of paper.
Yeah. And
I was no longer responsible for those spaces.
Yeah.
And for some people, it doesn't turn out like that. They have to leave their lease. They default. When things happen, I was very fortunate that I left on really good terms and there was new people there, and that was great. And I actually got money from these people because they bought a lot of my fixtures and things like that, my computers, because I don't need to take 3 computers with me, right? So I was very fortunate, and I think a lot of it was hard work. Like I put the work in to find people to take my spots, and I was able to leave. I went to an online only or online exclusive platform for over a year, which I also really enjoyed. But my life had changed so much because I had gotten married. I was in a new city. I had a stepson. And I also got a daytime job, quote unquote, because at the end of the day too, like you have to pay your bills, right? And so it was all great. But I just got to the point where my online store was more of a job instead of when I had my physical stores. I loved it because I loved seeing the people and visiting with them and finding them items they loved, where just the online store for me was more, I would film, it was a chore. And I hate to say that, but that's what it became because my life was somewhere else at that time.
Yeah.
And I still had sales and I still had really great clients. I had amazing clients, but I wasn't fulfilled by it.
Yeah.
And I just knew, literally one day I woke up, I'm like, I have to sell my online store. Like I have to. And
same thing.
I just had to do it.
Yeah.
And so I did it. I sold it.
Yeah.
And same thing, hard work, finding a buyer, finding the right buyer, because you don't want to give your baby to someone that you just are like, here, take it, give me money and I'm leaving.
Yeah.
You want it to be the right person and you want them to do well. And I was fortunate to find the right person and go through the sales process and do it. But that was also my identity for 9 years.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden now you have a team and that's your identity. And now it's just you're solo again. It's rebuilding everything because you're not a business person and a self.
Yeah.
You're one being.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And it's hard to differentiate sometimes, like you were saying, especially because when you're building a business, so much time is going into it. So much you're compromising your time, your family's time, or whatever to build it. So of course your identity is going to be wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. And now I'm trying to separate it a little bit and just say, you know what, it's a job that I have. It's not who I am. But that's a very tough separation after 7 years.
Yes.
I can.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Because I still struggle with it because people still will see me and be like, oh, you own that clothing store. And I'm like, no, I did.
Yeah.
I did, but not anymore. And then you're like, well, that's all that people know me for, and which is fine because that was your life.
Yeah.
But you have to make that pivot or that change.
Yeah. And kind of, I mean, it does force people to get to know who you are apart from it, because it's like, yeah, I am not, you can never be fully yourself as a business owner because you have to be professional. And that's right. Is what it is. I think you can be authentic and not show, your fully who you are. But yeah, people know a part of you as a business owner and as like the face of a clothing company or something, but they don't know all of you.
No, that's right. That's right. Okay. So let's kind of just move over into systemizing your business. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm just going to assume this, but you can tell us when you've gone back to solo, you've really had to systemize because now, again, it's just you. Yeah. You aren't relying on other people to do other aspects, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I have ramped up I have a virtual assistant who has been helping us throughout, but I've kind of ramped up her part of my, her part of my, I don't know. So that
your business really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that she can help with those things a little bit more and I can focus on selling a little bit more. Luckily for me, there's a lot, but one of the takeaways from having the team was when I was a solo agent, everything was in my head. I had like clients and I'm like, oh, got to get back to them on Wednesday. And then it's like in here. Wednesday, hopefully I remember. And then when Taylor said that she was getting her license, it really got me to think outside of myself and be like, okay, how is she going to know the possession dates that I have coming up? And how is she going to know who I'm working with and the last time I've contacted them? And how would she know any of that stuff? So it got me to kind of get everything out on paper. We use a client management system called Monday.com.
Oh, love Monday. Love Monday.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like originally an Excel sheet geek. And so it's like basically Excel sheets, but like better in my.
Yep. If you've not used Monday, if you're listening and you're like, what the heck is Monday? I know so many people that use it and they all have way different kinds of businesses.
Yeah.
Like it's so functional because you can add so much information.
Yeah. It's so customizable. What a plug they should be paying us for this.
Yeah. This is not Monday.com. Hello. This is not a paid advertisement, but we're really endorsing you here.
It's so great. And it has helped me now to transition back. At least I have it all laid out there. I don't need to be telling, like, for me, I don't like repetitive, menial tasks. I procrastinate doing them and things get very, I procrastinate so much that things get very unorganized if I don't have systems in place. And so
I agree.
I've got if something goes from active to pending, my virtual assistant gets an email, and, automizations like that really help. Because if everyone's relying on me for information and to send documents, realistically, it's not going to happen. I'm out there focusing on client experiences and selling instead of the back end paperwork stuff. So,
Well, and then what happens is at 8 p.m., let's say you're out doing showings and you come home at 8 p.m. and what happens is, instead of you sitting down and relaxing and reading a book or enjoying your Netflix show or whatever it is that you need to do to recharge, you are on your computer.
Yes.
Emailing people, sending things. Hey, can you do this? Hey, I need you to do this. Oh, yes, I'll get back to you tomorrow, whatever it is. And you've now spent 2 hours.
Yeah.
It just flies by. And now you're like, I have to start my day tomorrow and I'm tired and I never recharged. And all the things that you need to do to be a really great realtor, business owner, whatever your job is tomorrow, are struggling now because you have spent literally your entire day working.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how you kind of burn out. I think it's so important to take long breaks away from business, B, at least like a day off a week, and then B also, or C, I guess, to have some time during the day when you're not working. And it sounds really silly, but to have some time during the day, like you said, where you literally end it and then you read, get your mind away from it. Otherwise it's so easy to spend. If I wasn't married, my husband is very good at, reminding me that like time can be spent doing other things. But when I was single, I would just work because it's like, well, why would I do something else when I could be making money?
I know. And when you're younger, it's easier because you can stay up later and get up earlier. Yeah. But as you age, I'll tell you right now, it's not as easy because I need more downtime than I did 10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I do.
Yeah, it's hard to recognize that in yourself. But I think part of owning a business and taking action, like you were saying, you woke up one day and you were like, I have to sell this online store. You have to be really in tune with yourself to realize those things, because otherwise you would have probably kept that online store and every time you got an order, it'd be like, oh man, now I have to like do these 10 things to get it shipped out. And it takes a really big mental toll on you. You have to be really aware of yourself too.
Yeah. And you don't want to get there.
No.
Right? Like you don't want to get to the point where you're like, I hate what I'm doing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You want to make those changes before. And that's why, like, honestly, using something like Monday, it makes sure you don't ever get to that spot where you're like, I don't want to ever see this again.
Yeah.
Because you can automate things. Is there other systems or other things that you use besides Monday? Once again, not paid advertising, but like, let's just talk about what works for us.
Yeah. My top favorites that I use. So I use Planoly to schedule my social media, because I do have 2 accounts. I have my work one and then I have the podcast one. So it makes it a lot easier when you have time to just block it and schedule it all in instead of trying to daily think of what you're going to post. And then I also use Calendly, which you use as well.
I do so. Love it.
It is life-changing. And I probably should be sponsored by Calendly, because the joy that it brings me to just see, without the back and forth of what time works for you? I'm available these days. Oh, I can't do this week because whatever. And oh, where do you want it? Like, to just see something scheduled in without having that back and forth is amazing.
It is shocking to me the amount of time that it takes, like, to sit down and try to match schedules with one person. If you have to do it with 5 people or 7 people, something as simple as Calendly, I think it's $100 for the year.
Yeah.
Like, it's not expensive. No. And I think there's even free options.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. So once again, not a paid ad, but you can pay me if you want to. But Calendly, you send your link and somebody goes in and picks a time that works for them.
Yeah. And they can exactly see, and you can set parameters too, which is what I love. It's not like, oh, they can see every available spot. Oh, but you meant for that to be personal time. You can just be like, oh, I'm only doing the podcast on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And then that's all.
Exactly. Yeah. That's all I see. And for me, like, I've had international guests. I've had guests in Australia. Come on. I just send them the link.
Yes.
And they find it. We're talking about it's like a different day over there. And they found a time that works for them. And they're like, nope, this is great. It's 7 a.m. here. It's really early, but I like to do these things early while my kids are before my kids are gone to school. And it's worked out so great. Otherwise, you're dealing with time zones. You're dealing with different people's schedules. And once you put something in your calendar, it blocks that time off.
Yeah.
So it's gone.
Yeah.
So if I have a doctor's appointment at 2 p.m., they can't book it at 2 p.m. on Thursday, whatever it is. You guys got to look at Calendly. If you don't have it, please look into it. Any type of business that you have, it's a scheduler app that's going to be your best friend.
Yeah. And I find it really reduces the risk of miscommunication too, because it's especially different time zones. Like 8 a.m. could be 7 a.m., but they misunderstood that it was 2 hours difference, not 3, or whatever it is.
Yes.
Or, I said 5 p.m. Well, this is a bad example, but I said 5 p.m., but I meant 5 a.m. or whatever. It just takes all of that out.
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever systemized something and it didn't work out?
Great question. I mean, I was trying to use Calendly to book showings, because to me, that is one thing where there's like, you're trying to schedule you and the client, like your client, and then also the seller schedule and the opposite selling schedule. So I was trying to do that. And then also home inspections, because that's like a 3 or 4 hour time block. So I thought if clients could see my schedule, at least they could be like, okay, this is what's available in advance. But it doesn't really work for those applications. And there was a couple of like booked, but then it turned out it didn't work. So then they didn't book, and it just complicated it. So for one-on-one appointments where you're only working with one other person's calendar, it's fantastic. But once other people's calendars come into play, it doesn't.
Yeah. I think too, there's like a million apps. There's a million websites for all sorts of things. So I think figure out what you need for yourself and do a little research. Because we've told you about a few here now, but like figure out, like maybe Calendly doesn't work for you, for your clients, but it works for a different aspect of you. Or maybe there's a different app that works better. Right? We're giving suggestions because we've used and liked these. But there's so many different things. And I think a virtual assistant or a VA, you hear lots of times, my VA, virtual assistant, they are really great at helping you do a lot of things. And you have to pay them. But guess what? You just get to send them what you need to, and it's done. They send it back to you. You don't have to spend the time on that.
And I think it's so neat too now, because they have like my virtual assistant, shout out to Michelle, has different time packages. So for me, I don't have to commit to hiring somebody part-time. And then if I have a slow month, maybe I'm still committed to paying them, but maybe I didn't utilize their services.
Yes.
I pay her on the hours that she actually works. And so if I do have a slow time, then I'm not committed to paying somebody for that time frame.
That's a great point, because that's 100% right. You don't want to say, oh, I'll hire you for 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week, and then you don't need them, and that's still an expense for you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
very valuable.
Fiverr, or where did you find your virtual assistant?
She's in Winnipeg.
Oh, nice. She's close to you.
Yeah, actually, it just kind of came up, I think, when I was searching on Instagram. Her information came up, but I did interview a couple of virtual assistants, one from Calgary and one from somewhere else in Canada. But I just landed on Winnipeg just because she already was familiar with the paperwork and stuff.
Yeah. Fiverr is a site that I've used for lots of different things, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And there's lots of virtual assistants on there. So definitely something, and doesn't matter what your business is. Maybe your virtual assistant does your social media.
Yes.
Right? Post for you. Or maybe they do your paperwork. Or maybe if you have a podcast, they set up your guests. Like, there's so many things that they can do for you that will really, especially if you are a solopreneur, as I call them. Yeah. That like take the load off of you so that you don't have to be doing those tasks that either take too much time, take up your free time, right? Because you have to make sure that you also have that free time too. It's really important. Cannot stress enough. Go to the spa, read a book, go for a walk, whatever it is that you need to do, because that will save you, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Every morning I go to the gym.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
I sit down. Yeah. I have coffee at my computer. If I have to do emails, I always have a certain report I do every morning. I do that when I'm having my morning coffee, and then I go to the gym.
Yeah.
And it's an hour of time. I only go for an hour, but it's an hour of time.
Yeah.
That is for me.
Yeah.
And I don't work. Sometimes I work. Sometimes I slightly do work, but it's mainly just for me, and then it's done and I feel good about it.
Yeah. Because
I don't have to worry about now I have to go at 10 p.m. And everybody's schedule is different, right? Maybe your exercises, I go for a walk at 7 p.m. every night. That's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't have to be the gym, but as long as you have something, like you said, you work sometimes, but that's your choice. You have that time and you can use it however you want to. You're free from the burden of feeling guilty of working, but you can work if you want to. But it's like that time where you're free of that obligation.
Yeah, I love that. And whether it's like, it can be a half an hour of your day.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe you say from 12 to 12:30 is my time and I do with it what I want. I eat lunch. I go for a walk. I do laundry. I watch Kardashians, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? It's your time that brings you that recharge. I always call it a recharge of your batteries, right? But then then you have that time of your brain maybe isn't just focused on everything else that you're doing that day.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great advice. Yeah. Do you have a most important lesson that you can share?
Great question. I think, I don't know.
It's a really loaded question because sometimes I say something that you could tell, maybe it's just someone starting out and they're listening to this because they're like, I want to have my own thing.
Yeah.
And it's just maybe that advice is the set time aside, but something that they can really take away.
I think for me, one of the things that especially with my recent changes now, one of the things that I would just say is being successful in business literally just takes staying in it. I think everyone's scared of failing in business or failing. What if I start something and fail? We're all pivoting. We're all changing. It's not if you start something and it doesn't go well, that doesn't mean you failed in business. That just means you're pivoting and you just need to stay in it longer. I don't know.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Mm-hmm.
Persevere.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And resilience. Like, you got to be tough.
Yes.
It's a tough thing to have your own business, and it's a tough thing to make changes. I mean, you made a huge change this year. That's really hard.
Yeah.
But just knowing that the other side of this change or this pivot is going to actually be really awesome, right? And looking forward to that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's enjoying every part of it, not just the big wins. Yeah.
Agreed. And it's not failure, it's learning.
Yeah.
And it happens to everybody. We've all had stuff that you're like, well, that didn't turn out as I had hoped or planned.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's something small and sometimes something really big.
Yeah.
But you learn your lesson and you carry on.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. And anything you wish you had known?
Honestly, no. There's things that I'm glad that I learned, but I think if I had known about mistakes before I had made them, then a lot of the action that I took I wouldn't have done it. And I think it's important that I did it and learned it for myself. Also, when I was starting my business, and still sometimes, like, you can't tell me anything. If you tell me like, oh, you shouldn't, if somebody had told me, oh, you shouldn't start a team because, whatever, you might find it to be too much and you won't have a team anymore. I'd be like, nah, not me.
Yeah. Not me. Never going to happen to me.
Nope. So I don't think if I had known, or if somebody had told me anything ahead of time, if I would have even listened. I have to actually experience it for myself.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, same as me.
Yep.
You're going to open a business and you're going to sell it. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's the same. And you're right. You have to go through those experiences to learn and grow and develop and change. Like, we don't stay the same. You're not the same person that when you're 25, 35, 45, 55, you develop and grow and change. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Your business doesn't have to be today what it was 10 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. It can change. Yeah.
That's great advice. Where can people find you? I'm sure that people want to learn more about you or be able to follow you, especially your podcast. So where can they go to learn more?
I always plug my Instagram. At my work one is at Realtor_Graham. And then for the podcast, it's at the Best Bench Podcast. And then, my website is dana-graham at century21.ca.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on. I cannot wait to be on your podcast because then I get like the fun part. Yes. It's fun hosting. I shouldn't say that. It's really fun hosting, but it's also just fun telling your story. And I appreciate that you shared with us today and your journey, and a huge thank you for being on.
Thank you.
And to everybody listening, thank you so much. For everybody listening, we'll be back next week with a new episode. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you then. Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Kilshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. And of course, a huge thank you to this episode's guest. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.